I never meant to find it. Honestly, I wasn't snooping. Lydia had told me so casually over the phone. Of course, Clara. Come by anytime. You can borrow anything you need. I'd been rushing that morning, still deciding whether I had the energy to even show up at the charity gala. My marriage to Mark had been, well, different lately, but not broken. Or so I told myself. Lydia wasn't home when I arrived. She'd left the back door open, as always, with a note on the counter written in her looping, dramatic handwriting. Help yourself, sis. Closet's all yours, I smiled despite myself. That was Lydia. Charming, generous, a little theatrical. She was the baby of the family, our mother's favorite, the one who always got away with everything because she didn't mean to. Her house smelled faintly of jasmine and coffee, the way it always did. As I walked down the hall to her bedroom, my heels clicked against the polished floorboards that Mark had helped her install last spring. I remember thinking how close they'd gotten during that project, how Lydia would call him my honorary handyman, and I'd roll my eyes, pretending not to notice the way she'd touch his arm when she laughed. It was harmless, I told myself. Family. Her closet was as chaotic as her personality, dresses spilling off hangers, shoes tossed in corners, silk blouses tangled like unruly secrets. I laughed softly. Typical Lydia. She could make even disorder look glamorous. I pulled a few dresses aside, searching for something that fit my body. Something that didn't make me feel like a faded version of who I used to be. That's when I saw it. A long, charcoal gray garment bag tucked behind a rack of winter coats. It stood out because it didn't belong. Everything else was sequins and color. Yet this was muted, almost solemn. My fingers brushed against it, and an odd chill went through me. The fabric was familiar. I tilted my head, studying the faint gold logo embroidered near the zipper. Harper & Row Tailoring. My heart stumbled. Mark's wedding suit had come from Harper & Row. He'd been so proud of it. Talking about the Italian wool, the hand-stitching, the custom fit. I'll probably never wear anything this fine again, he'd said, beaming at me as we stood in front of the mirror the day before our wedding. I teased him that he looked like a movie star. That was 8 years ago. I swallowed hard and forced myself to laugh. Coincidences happen, right? Lydia could have bought something secondhand. She loved designer finds. I unzipped the bag, just to be sure. The smell hit first. That clean, expensive scent of pressed wool and faint cologne. My stomach twisted. I pulled the zipper all the way down and parted the folds of fabric. It was his suit, the exact same deep charcoal gray with the subtle pinstripe running down the side. My eyes darted to the inner lining, praying it wasn't true. But there it was, stitched in delicate gold thread, M.W. Mark Weston. The room tilted. My knees went weak. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The sunlight streaming through the window looked too bright, almost cruel. I ran my fingers along the embroidery, half expecting it to burn me. My mind started spinning through every memory that should have meant nothing, and now meant everything. Lydia's giggle when she answered his texts at dinner. Her insistence that Mark was the only man who really gets my sense of humor. That weekend they worked on her kitchen remodel together when I was visiting our mother in the hospital. No, it couldn't be. My chest tightened, panic rising like acid. I pressed a hand to my mouth, afraid I might scream. I wanted to zip the bag closed, erase what I'd seen, go back to the version of my life where Lydia was my sister, my confidant, my best friend. But the image wouldn't leave me. His suit, our wedding suit, in her closet. I sank onto the edge of her bed, my pulse racing. The sheets were pale pink silk, rumpled as if someone had just gotten up. A glass of red wine sat half-finished on her nightstand. My eyes caught on a cufflink glinting beside it. Silver, square cut, engraved with the same initials. I pressed my fist to my mouth to stop the sob that threatened to break free. Mark had always been meticulous about his cufflinks. He'd once joked that he felt naked without them. I used to love watching him button them in the morning, the small, precise movements of a man who wanted to look perfect before stepping into the world. Now I realized perfection was just another mask. For a long moment, I just sat there trembling. Memories flickered like broken film reels. The day Lydia helped me pick out my wedding dress. How she cried during the vows. How she toasted us at the reception saying, "If I can find half of what you two have, I'll be the luckiest woman alive." Half. The word made me sick. I don't know how long I sat like that staring at the garment bag. The longer I looked, the more it felt like it was staring back, mocking me. My reflection in the closet mirror looked unfamiliar, pale, hollow-eyed, older than I remembered. Finally, I stood up. Slowly, carefully, I zipped the bag shut. My hands shook so badly that the zipper caught halfway. I forced it up anyway. I hung the suit back exactly where it had been, smoothed the fabric, straightened the hanger. When I turned to leave, I caught sight of myself again in the mirror, and for the first time, I didn't recognize the woman looking back. In the car, I couldn't stop replaying it. The initials, the cufflink, the smell. Every detail clung to me like static. My body felt numb, but my mind was racing. I tried to rationalize. Maybe Mark had left it here after helping Lydia with something. Maybe she'd taken it to get cleaned for him. But no, the bag wasn't new, and he'd never mentioned losing it. By the time I reached home, I was shaking so badly that I nearly dropped my keys. Mark wasn't there. He'd texted earlier that he'd be working late. I stared at that message for a long time, wondering how many nights he'd worked late. I poured myself a glass of wine but couldn't drink it. The house was too quiet, too heavy with ghosts of laughter and lies. Everywhere I looked, there were traces of the life I thought I had. The framed wedding photo on the mantel, the scent of his aftershave in the hallway, the faint indentation on his pillow. I sat on the couch, staring at nothing. My heart didn't break all at once. It fractured slowly. In microscopic cracks I could feel spreading through every memory. I remembered Lydia at our last family barbecue, laughing at one of his jokes, her hand resting a second too long on his arm. I'd noticed. I'd felt something back then, an unease I swallowed down because I refused to believe my sister could do that to me. Because believing it would mean everything I loved was a lie. Maybe the truth had been whispering all along, and I just refused to listen. That night, as I lay in bed, staring into the dark, I kept seeing that suit hanging there, still, silent, accusing. I thought of all the times I'd defended Lydia, all the ways I'd protected Mark from criticism, believing that love meant forgiveness before the apology. Now I wasn't sure what love meant at all. I didn't confront him. Not yet. Instead, I started noticing every word, every glance, every excuse. I began to catalog them, quietly, carefully. Because if I was going to face the truth, I needed proof. Something inside me shifted that day. Not shattered exactly, but hardened. The part of me that once trusted without question turned to steel. And as I stared into the darkness, the words formed like a quiet confession in my mind. That's when I realized the betrayal wasn't new. I'd just been too loyal to see it. I woke with his suit ringing in my head like a bell. I didn't tell Mark I'd been at Lydia's. I made his coffee, kissed his cheek, watched the tiny flinch he tried to hide. I wrote it on a sticky note tucked inside a cookbook. Flinch, 712A. M. That was how it began. Small entries in a private ledger. The quiet accountant of my own life. I checked our wireless bill and saw late-night calls to Lydia's number, the ones not matching her cardio class nights. I logged into the household account to pay a utility and memorize timestamps. I told myself I was prudent, not paranoid. At lunch, I scrolled through old photos. In the mirrored frame behind Mark's shoulder, a pair of emerald earrings winked, the same ones Lydia treated herself to, the ones she swore never left the box. I zoomed until the pixels crumbled, then pressed the phone to my chest. In his wallet, I found a receipt from a bakery across town, 2 cappuccinos, 1 almond croissant, 1 flourless chocolate cake. On a Tuesday, he said he was with a client. "Dessert at noon is uncivilized," he used to joke. I filed the receipt beneath the sticky notes. I listened to tone. His phone lit up face down. Lydia's laughter, when I called, came half a beat too early, like someone fed her lines from across the room. Sometimes, when I entered our bedroom, his voice stopped mid-sentence and he looked at me like I'd interrupted a show he'd paid for. "Just work," he said. "Clients don't smell like my sister's perfume." Jasmine clung to him. Once, coral lipstick smudged his collar. He said a colleague hugged him at a conference. I saw the coral lipstick scattered across Lydia's vanity like flares. Gaslighting revealed itself in hindsight, like fingerprints under powder. A dinner last year, I teased that Mark and Lydia were renovation soulmates. Lydia lifted a brow. "Careful, Clara. If you tease too well, he'll believe you." Everyone laughed. Later, when I asked Mark if it felt strange, he kissed my forehead. "You overread," he said. "You're sensitive in that beautiful way." Sensitive, beautiful, words that pin you to the wall. I visited our mother. She sorted linens the way she sorts feelings, by color, by season. "Family always comes first," she recited when I admitted feeling off with Mark and uneasy with Lydia. "Make allowances. You girls must stick together." I didn't tell her about the suit. I wondered how much she'd ask me to forgive if I did. By week's end, obsession had moved into my body. I ate mechanically, slept like a guard, learned the choreography of phones. The ledger grew. Flinch, Jasmine, coral, bakery, earrings, silence when I enter, laugh half-second early, Tuesday cake. In the car, I asked, "Am I crazy?" If I confronted them, I'd be dramatic. If I waited, I was complicit. If I left, I was cruel. The world has a word for every choice a woman makes. Mark invited me to a client dinner, then regretted to inform me it moved to spouse-free. He'd practiced the line. I texted Lydia, "Drinks Friday? I miss you." She sent hearts and a retreat excuse. She used to punctuate me with exclamation marks. Now she barely punctuated me. I retreated into evidence. From a box, I pulled a photo from our reception. Mark twirling me. Lydia blurry behind us, hands clasped like prayer. Tilting the glass, I caught a smudged fingerprint. Maybe mine, maybe not. He came home humming. "We landed the account," he said, opening a rare bottle. He poured 2 glasses. "To us." I watched. "To us," I echoed, and a small light inside me went out. Clarity arrived like winter after a fever breaks. I saw their structure. Minor edits, reassignments of memory, stories where I was forgetful and Lydia helpful, where my concerns were cute quirks and their time together was practical magic. They had written me into the supporting role of my own life. I would take back the lead, but first I needed one public scene. Sunday dinner at our mother's. Roast chicken, green beans with almonds, Lydia's lemon tart. I arrived early and set the forks straight. Mark carried flowers. Lydia came last, radiant, mouth glowing that impossible coral. We ate. We chatted. Mom asked about the gala I'd skipped. Lydia called me a hermit. Mark retold a client story we'd all heard. They laughed like it was new. Halfway through dessert, I cleared my throat. "I borrowed a dress from you last week, Lydia," I said, casual as weather, and saw a Harper & Row garment bag. Her fork paused. Mark kept eating, deliberate. "It reminded me of Mark's suit," I continued. "The one with the gold initials, MW." Silence cut the room. "Clara," Mark said, gentle, warning. "We're at your mother's." "I know where we are," I said, and turned to Lydia. "Why was his suit in your closet?" She blinked, then laughed. Crystal clear and fake as stage glass. "What?" "Oh, Clara, sweetheart. Mark asked me to take it for alterations. Didn't you, Mark?" He nodded, barely. "She was closer to the tailor." "Harper & Row closed last year," I said. Mom dropped her napkin. "Girls," she whispered, alarm braided with fatigue. "Please." "Another branch," Lydia said. "Or I'm mixing it up. My closet is chaos. Things appear." "Like cufflinks?" I asked. "Silver squares engraved MW?" She smiled, slow. Lots of men have MW initials, practically John Smith. Mark chuckled, relieved. Clara, come on. This is getting… Paranoid? The word tasted like rust. He reached for my hand. You've been under stress. Mom touched my arm. Clara, darling, you do work too hard at your feelings. I looked at my mother's careful face, the tart sweating under the light, my sister's smirk, my husband's practiced concern. Humiliation arrived not with heat, but with ice. They had rehearsed this scene. In their version, I was the unhinged woman mistaking coincidences for conspiracy. I withdrew my hand. Then you won't mind showing me your closet now, I said to Lydia. We can all drive over. I'll bring dessert. Her eyes hardened. Don't be ridiculous. Enough, Mom said, her old authority stopping tears mid-fall. We do not ruin dinners. We keep the peace. There it was. The family anthem. Peace like a placemat thrown over a fire. Mark pushed back his chair. I love you, he said softly, but this is beneath you. What's beneath me, I answered, is the suit that didn't belong there. I let my gaze rest on Lydia. Or maybe I didn't belong anymore. No one spoke. Forks glinted. The clock ticked with indecent cheer. I picked up my purse. Enjoy the tart, I said, kissing my mother's hair. She whispered, family first. I walked to the door on legs that remembered how to move when my heart stalled. Outside, the night air felt honest. My phone buzzed. Mark, come back inside. Buzzed again. Lydia, don't be dramatic. Another. Mom, please, Clara. I let the messages pile like leaves. Peace was no longer the goal. I turned the key, and I drove into war. It's strange how silence can become a friend. For months after that dinner, I woke to an unfamiliar quiet, the kind that doesn't echo with footsteps or apologies. The house felt both smaller and freer without Mark's briefcase on the counter, without the scent of his cologne clinging to the curtains. I moved through each room like a survivor cataloging the ruins, and instead of sorrow, I felt relief. The first night alone, I couldn't sleep. The bed felt too wide, the dark too honest. But by the fourth night, I slept for 6 straight hours. By the second week, I learned to eat breakfast without shaking. By the third, I realized that the quiet wasn't loneliness. It was peace, learning my name again. Therapy helped. At first, I sat stiff in the chair, arms crossed, convinced I was too old to start unraveling everything I'd been taught. Family comes first, my mother's voice echoed. But my therapist smiled gently and asked, whose family? That question broke something loose. I realized I'd spent my whole life protecting other people's comfort, even when it hurt me. I found an apartment with big windows that let in morning light. I planted herbs on the sill, basil, mint, and lavender. Simple, stubborn things that grew easily if you just remembered to water them. Each day I learned a new rhythm, paying bills. In my own name, cooking for one, laughing at my own jokes. Small, sacred victories. I didn't stalk their lives, but news has a way of finding you. Lydia left her job after a misunderstanding with a colleague. Her words, not mine. Mark's business took a hit when a client accused him of falsifying numbers. I didn't rejoice. I didn't need to. Their collapse wasn't my closure. It was just gravity doing its work. Sometimes people dig their own graves and call it destiny. I ran into Lydia once, by accident, at the pharmacy. She looked thinner, her smile tighter. Clara, she said softly, as if saying my name required permission. You look good. I nodded. I am. She waited for something, maybe forgiveness, maybe an argument, but I gave her neither. I paid for my vitamins and left her standing there among the discounted greeting cards. Freedom, I've learned, is not dramatic. It's quiet. It's walking away without looking back. Then one morning, months later, I passed a small consignment shop on my walk to therapy. I wasn't planning to stop, but the window display caught me, a mannequin dressed in a charcoal gray suit. My chest tightened. I stepped inside before I could talk myself out of it. It was his suit, the same one, the faint pinstripe, the gold-stitched initials, MW, still there like a whisper from a ghost. I asked the clerk where it came from. She shrugged. Some woman dropped it off with a pile of clothes, said she was cleaning house. I almost laughed. Cleaning house? I bought it. Not to keep the memory, but to reclaim it. The suit that once symbolized their secret became my evidence of survival. I brought it home, hung it in my closet, and stared at it for a long time. It didn't hurt anymore. It just existed, like a photograph from a past life I no longer belonged to. That evening, I opened an old drawer and found a letter I'd written, months before, back when the pain was fresh and words were my only weapon. It was addressed to Lydia. I had poured everything into it, rage, grief, longing for an explanation that would never come. Reading it now, I saw not anger, but exhaustion, the kind of love that had bled itself dry trying to stay decent. I took the letter to the shore near my apartment. The sea was calm, gray as the suit, endless as forgiveness I no longer needed to offer. I lit the edge with a match and watched it curl into flame. The ashes lifted into the breeze, scattering like old promises. Standing there, I realized I didn't need anyone to see my healing. Vindication doesn't need witnesses. It lives quietly in the way your chest doesn't tighten when you remember, in how your reflection finally looks like someone you can trust again. He wore that suit to promise forever. I wear it now and then to remember I survived. When family betrays you, the wound cuts twice as deep. But healing means reclaiming your story, not waiting for their apology. Love built on lies is not loyalty. It's bondage disguised as devotion. I spent years mistaking silence for peace, endurance for grace. But real peace isn't passive. It's the courage to choose yourself, even when it means being called heartless. Forgiveness, I've learned, doesn't always involve reunion. Sometimes it's just closing the door softly and refusing to open it again. There's a strange beauty in loss when it's honest. The pain doesn't vanish, but it refines you. It teaches you how to live without shrinking. And that's what I want every woman listening to remember. You are not crazy for noticing what hurts. You are not cruel for wanting to be free. What would you have done if you found your husband's wedding suit in your sister's closet? If stories like this speak to your heart, follow and share to help more women find their voice.